Most hosts think they understand how Booking.com works. They list their property and wait for the reservations to roll in. But here's what almost nobody realises. The platform is reading you, your response rate, your pricing behaviour, your cancellation history, and it's ranking you against thousands of other listings based on signals most hosts have never even heard of. My guest today spent almost 20 years inside Booking.com. She knows exactly what those signals are, and she's going to tell you which ones actually move the needle. Welcome back to Host Planet. I'm James Farley. You're watching Built to Book, our 6-part series with Smoobu, where we cover everything it takes to run a short-term rental like a professional. From winning on OTAs to building your direct booking presence to protecting your profit. This is episode 2, and today's guest is Christin Schmidt, the head of global partnerships at Smoobu and a former Booking.com insider. She joins me today with information most hosts simply don't have access to. Let's get straight into it. Christin, welcome to the show. Let's start here. You spent almost 20 years with Booking.com. What's the thing that hosts consistently misunderstand about how the platform actually decides who gets visibility?
Yeah, I wouldn't call it misunderstand. I think they potentially look at it sometimes rather limited. Let's call it like that. I think when guests look at the ranking on how they position, they of course look at reviews and of course also price, especially nowadays with the discussions about professionalization. Hosts look at yielding, revenue management and how to position themselves. And that's absolutely correct. But from a platform perspective, they actually look at the whole ecosystem. So, if you step into their shoes, they rather think about, okay, what is a traveler looking for? And how can they display the best match actually for that search and what is converting the most? Hence, they are looking actually at several elements, not only price and reviews. In the early days of e-commerce, we called it the 7 Cs. No one calls it now like this anymore, but it's actually a nice reminder of what to think of. And if you look into these 7 Cs, it's of course the customer reviews, clearly the competitive pricing, but it's also conversion and the click-through rate. It's content, it's cancellation, it's constant availability, and of course also commission, because there's certain programs how you can rank yourself up. And so it's a whole formula of different elements, and that formula is constantly reevaluated. So you don't kind of deliver only once. No, it's constantly reassessed. And if you, for example, have 2 properties shown perfect match for the search, the one who actually performs better in this 7 Cs and in this whole ranking formula is ranked first. So I think hosts look at it correctly from a revenue perspective, but they have to put the marketeer hat on. What are the other criteria to actually play this algorithm and be listed upwards? So it's rather widening the view instead of changing something completely.
What do you think is the quickest way to hack the algorithm? If you wanted to get a boost tomorrow, what should you do?
It really depends. I cannot give you the one answer, because first thing what I would do is always look at the analytics and start with data. Is it actually that you don't get enough clicks and you're not shown often enough? Then you might have to look at restrictions and your availability, your others. Or is it the problem that you are not converting? So you get traffic, but no one books you. Then it might be a very different problem. You're not competitive, or you don't have good content, or a new competitor open up. So really this one answer, everyone has this one answer, but it differs per property and based on the situation. So analytics is the first thing I would check.
Good advice. And are all the OTAs pretty much the same, or are there big differences in how they rank? Airbnb, Booking.com, Vrbo?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. And this is the part which I'm learning now, working with all OTAs. So they are coming all from a different angle. Booking.com started with hotels, has a very strong, of course, performance expertise. And therefore, the whole platform is heavily performance driven. Whereas Airbnb came more from the design community concept. So reviews is very important. And so they also have these elements in there, but how they weight it in their formula and if it's directly in the formula, of course, I don't know all of this in detail, but this is where the angle sometimes is different. They check design and reviews, whereas booking really performance driven. And you also sometimes, by the way, see that in products. To give you one interesting example, the non-refundable rate, right? With Booking.com, when you load it, you can load it up to 1 year ahead, etc. And of course, this is a very important rate, especially for hotels when it comes to trade fairs, because these trade fairs, they mainly sell to higher prices and non-refundable because it's super important business. In Airbnb, however, this non-refundable rate is only bookable for a very short period and not long ahead. So even how the products are built, they're coming from a different angle. So booking is very performance driven, and Airbnb as an example, a bit more design, content review driven, experience driven.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm just thinking now, because my gut feeling is that reviews feel a lot more important on Airbnb than they do on Booking.com.
Yeah, I think reviews still matter a lot on Booking.com, but they are almost an indirect driver for conversion, or for filters. So it's maybe not a direct indicator like it is on Airbnb, but indirectly it stimulates the formula of conversion. So
interesting.
The weighting is different. I think the platform thinking is the same. The weighting is different.
Yeah, definitely. Most hosts then, they treat OTA commission as money that they're losing. Let's make the case for why that's the wrong mental model and what they should be calling it instead.
Yeah. It's a very human thing. I think no one likes to pay bills. I'm also not happy when I go to my mailbox and there are invoices in there. So I fully understand that. And yes, of course, ideally you want to get everything directly via brand.com, no commission, and that's the ideal world. But I think if we're realistic, we all know that brand.com alone is not enough to fill your occupancy throughout the whole year. So you naturally have to look at different distribution channels, and ideally not only one, but a nice mix. We also don't want over dependency, right? So, and there, of course, OTAs are a very, very strong acquisition channel. You definitely don't want to skip. So yes, now you could say, is the commission worth it? Is it expensive? Well, if you think about doing everything what OTAs do by yourself, like search engine optimization, marketing campaigns, translating into all of these languages, payment throughout all the world, customer service, fraud, phishing, all of these topics are super relevant nowadays. If you do it by yourself, first of all, you probably don't have the expertise. Then you have to pay for the expertise. And then also how marketing works, you pay upfront without the delivery. This is actually why OTAs were created in the first place and were super successful, because now you had to pay only once you got a booking. And the cost for all of this is almost consolidated through and shared from all of the platforms. And that makes it almost cheaper than if you do the whole business yourself. So it's literally a marketing cost. I think this whole reason why it exists got lost over the time. And yes, because of dependency, commission became more and more a topic because OTAs are very, very strong. So, but this is the wrong way to look at it. So it's a marketing channel. It's worth it. But yes, you want to avoid over dependency and you want to diversify and have different channels. And of course, brand.com is also your direct website is your favorite. That's clear. And it's also something actually for OTAs, right? Think about them. They also work via Google, etc., but they also prefer the business directly. So it's a fair desire, which you can of course try to fulfill, but you should definitely also work with OTAs and they're worth their money.
Very balanced way of looking at things. We've touched on this a little bit already, but walk us through how OTA search algorithms actually work. What are the signals the platform is reading and which ones move the needle the most?
Yeah, good question. I mean, yes, we touched on it already a little bit when I talked about the 7 Cs and the difference of the platform. But if I would have to group it, then they're for sure really the commercial and the performance elements, like everything regarding conversion, click-through rate, your price competitiveness, availability, cancellation, all of the commercial elements. So that's definitely a driving factor in the algorithm. And then you have the indirect ones, like, for example, guest reviews. So do you have good reviews? Do you reply to your reviews? Do you actually also monitor your review trend if they're certain things popping up in customer complaints or something? Are you actually taking actions? Because the recency is also weighted different. So that is, of course, impact when guests filter by reviews or also make decisions of which property to book. So that's an indirect conversion driver. Content for sure as well. I think when OTA started, we always spoke in the beginning all about content. All these different gimmicks and features didn't exist yet, so it was only content. Then kind of attention focus shifted to all of the other elements. Now with AI, we actually back to content. Content is king. Because with now AI and free text search, how properties are surfaced is based also on information which can be found, of course, in your descriptions, in your amenities which you tick, but also AI can read pictures. Let's say you have a nice picture of a Porsche and you're looking in the garden and you don't have it in your description, and now a guest really is looking for that. AI can read the picture and surface your property. So all of your USP you should put in, and content becomes way, way smarter. Also, AI picks up on how guests, on reviews and how you reply to reviews. So all of this information is feeded in content. So content is king and is super important. And then two more things maybe to mention. One is the platform participation. There are a lot of programs, preferred program, Genius, different promotions, marketing campaigns. All of this is also crucial, and surface also properties faster and specific. For specific needs and searches, and personalization as well. Guests are more and more spoiled and have very high expectations. So they also want to find the perfect match, and they don't want to look around, and they want to have very unique needs kind of fulfilled. And in the past, it was only dependent on filters, but also now with AI, the theoretical filters exploded. There are way more options. So I would say these are the main criteria, all wrapped in a formula, which is, like I said earlier, constantly reassessed. So it's not only about revenue management, it's acting like a marketeer and constantly learning and testing, piloting, not standing still. Actually, I have a big respect for hosts because it's almost a full-time job.
It really is, yeah. And there is a lot to think about, and everything that you've just mentioned there makes me think, oh my goodness, there's a lot more than just like preparing a listing these days. So much more goes into it. Really quick then, if you're getting value from this series, hit subscribe wherever you watch or listen. We've got 4 more episodes of Built to Book to come, featuring top voices from across the short-term rental industry, and you don't want to miss them. Also, we'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below with your biggest OTA frustration. We read every single one. Okay then, Christin, you kind of trailed this a little bit before. Preferred partner, genius status on booking.com. A lot of hosts see these as discounts being pushed on them, and in return you'll get maybe a bump up the algorithm a little bit. Why is that potentially a misreading, and what are hosts actually getting in return for signing up to these?
Yeah. These two examples touch again like the cost element of platforms. So obviously preferred, you pay a higher commission to be ranked in the top 30% of the program, and Genius is an extra discount for loyal OTA customers. So yes, it feels like cutting your margin, and let's be honest, if you're fully occupied and what we talked earlier, have everything filled with brand.com or your direct website, maybe then it's not needed, but you should see it rather than only a discount as another marketing tool, because it's actually also interesting business, and it's not only about the discount, it's also about getting incremental bookings. And if you have incremental bookings and you actually deliver then a really nice service, you also have the opportunity to expanding your loyal customer base by wowing them and making sure they are returning. But maybe one thing to add as well on preferred. So preferred means you listed higher up, so you get way, way more clicks, which if you do it right and you convert these bookings, also help you really in the ranking on the long run, which you're trying to uplift. So independent from preferred, you generally benefit from it because this algorithm is stimulated faster and stronger. But you have to be careful. If you, for example, don't have a good conversion or you have a high cancellation rate, don't go into preferred, because then the stimulation goes the other way around. So I think these programs work really, really well when your base performance is set up well and is functioning very well. Same with Genius. I know there's also sometimes the discussion about, do I want to actually help the OTAs build their loyalty customer base? Isn't it counterproductive what I'm trying to do? Yes and no. Funnily, there was once a test done between Booking.com and Redison. They hired an external agency, and they both secretly gave their data. Anonym, of course, and not shareable, cross-shareable. And they analyzed what is actually the real overlap. And that overlap was shockingly small, very small, because if you think about it, Redison, and I know this is now a hotel, but these customers are loyal to the brand. And there's also Booking.com customers, they're also loyal to their channel. So almost if a traveler chooses their channel, they have a reason for it, and they're not necessarily always swapping. So that argument for me is doesn't always make sense because the traveler chooses the channel. And if it's about the Genius program, it's actually a very attractive customer base because these are frequent travelers. They cancel less, they pay more, they stay longer. So there are commercial benefits from it. So I really see it more as a marketing tool, which works really well when your base is performing well, because then these are massive stimulators which benefit you also overall. But of course, it's another distribution channel strategy, which you need to decide, do you need it, do you want it? But ideally, it gives you incremental bookings and it's worth it.
Interesting. I mean, obviously with those, there is more of a cost involved. Like you're saying, you're going to pay a little bit more commission. Do you just kind of put your rates up accordingly? Is that what people do?
Actually, yes, that's what people do, but that sounds smart, but it's unfortunately not. Because if you do that, you then hurt your competitiveness and suddenly your conversion is dropping. That's what I meant. Then it goes actually backwards and you stimulate your ranking negatively. So I would be very careful with doing that. And what the OTAs, of course, monitor, they are also seeing that. They're seeing, hey, this is actually a fake Genius. That's dangerous for their own brand. So they actually start now putting also stoppers in there that you get a pop-up window. No, you have to put a real discount in. So the machine is already triggering it and giving warnings, but they also manually checking. And I'm sure, since it's a business risk for them, that this is also something they will keep monitoring moving forward even more.
Interesting. So a special offer actually has to be a special offer. You can't just brand it.
Also imagine your traveler, right? If they do it and then they feel also betrayed and then you get a bad review. So, or they don't come to you again and say, hey, So yeah, don't play games on the back of travelers.
Yeah, absolutely. What's the most counterintuitive thing a host can do on an OTA that most people resist doing, but it would actually immediately improve their ranking?
That's a very smart element by this algorithm from the OTAs. It's actually availability. Obviously, if you have your channel distribution and you're trying to get the most direct and then the others to fill maybe some other areas of your occupancy, then you potentially close certain days, you put restrictions in, etc., etc. But if the algorithm of the OTAs measures availability, they measure consistency of availability. So if you only pop up once in a while, your score of availability goes down and your rank down. So the loyal hosts who give a lot of availability to the OTAs will, of course, get the first search result as well. So it's hurting you as well from the algorithm, but also if you, for example, and I see that in the vacation rental industry a lot, if you're trying to sell 30 days plus, you need to look at who are the right channels for that. If you go to an OTA, their main search queries are short term. So then you hardly shown because, these properties are not displayed if they're not in the search window. So availability, opening it up as much as possible, which again comes into this, you need to decide what your strategy is and how you want to play it, and costs come in and all of these factors. But availability is probably one of the biggest levers next to, of course, pricing.
Makes sense. Yeah, the OTAs basically being loyal to the people who are most loyal to them.
Yeah.
There's a bit of a trade-off there. Yeah. Let's talk about the one-time rule then. People talk about this a lot in the industry, using OTAs for your marketing to find the guest and then converting them to direct booking next time. How do you do this in practice without running into platform issues later?
Yeah. So what you definitely should not do is interfering in this booking process while it's still on booking. Like, for example, while the guest didn't arrive, to message the guest, hey, please book direct. This is almost seen as fraud. And then you can be even banned from the platform. It's very hard to get back on. So that is almost stealing a customer. And obviously they did their work for it. They did marketing, they did translation, they did all of this. So it's actually also fair that they say, that's not what we want. What you, however, can do as soon as the guest arrives at your property, you can ask for their email address and you can build a loyal base with these emails and kind of retarget. This is something you can do because now the guest is your guest. You can wow them, you can deliver service, and this is something which is absolutely fair to do. It's just don't interfere in the pre-process because that's seen as stealing and non-compliant, and that's seen as fraud. But otherwise, that's okay.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, once they're in your property, then that's the time to get them and make sure they book direct next time. Okay, then quick pause. This series is brought to you by Smoobu, the all-in-one software built for short-term rental hosts and property managers. Smoobu syncs your availability, rates, and bookings in real time across Airbnb, Booking.com, Expedia, and your direct booking website, so you never deal with a double booking again. But it's not just a channel manager. Smoobu gives you a booking engine for direct reservations, built-in guest communication tools, dynamic pricing, and even a digital guest guide. Everything in one dashboard. Click the link in the description to find out more and to take advantage of a Smoobu special offer. All right, back to it. Christin, what does a listing that's quietly losing ground look like? What are the early signals that a host is falling behind before the bookings actually drop?
I almost see it in a two-way approach. I mean, I think if a property is losing ground, it probably starts very early in how they run their operations. We in the beginning of our chat, we talked about how complex it is nowadays to run a vacation rental business and how much you have to think about. If you're not organized or you do everything manually, your time is eaten up by all of these things and you don't have time to think about optimization. So for me, it's really how do you run your business operational wise? What maybe tech solution do you use? Of course, here also costs come in. What is my tech stack? What is my cost tech stack? I also need to optimize it. But once I have that really well set up and figured out, and I also need to constantly review, potentially some new solutions are coming in and how it's working, etc. So if that, however, is well set up, then you do have the chance to actually optimize for performance. So that's the first one where you can lose ground very quickly. And then in the performance side, I mean, obviously, when your bookings go down, that's when you feel it's not going well. But probably the early signals are what we mentioned or touched on also earlier was in the analytics. Are your clicks going down? Is your conversion going down? Is maybe your lead time for the reservation is slowing down? These are some signals where maybe you're not yet in trouble, but something is off. So don't look only at it once it's burning, but also look at it that it continues to be positive, because otherwise you might miss a early signal, which can become a business risk afterwards. And just to touch on this lead time, you of course also have to look then at the macro markets. Like nowadays, we know with the economic uncertainties and all of these negative news we are hearing, travelers in general book also last minute. So maybe it's not then you, maybe it's the market. So you really also need to, when you see something, spot something, also check, is it you? Is it my competitors? Is it the market overall? So yeah, then you need to dive deep into it, but you do it ideally regularly, not only once it's burning.
Absolutely. Yeah. Keep an eye on the data, as Christin has mentioned quite a few times during this episode. How should hosts think about their pricing on OTAs relative to their direct booking site? Should they match it? Should they undercut it? Or is that the wrong question entirely?
Yeah, there's also a hot topic always, this topic of rate parity. I mean, legally, you can do whatever you want. There are no restrictions anymore, also in EMEA, regarding regulations. You can sell brand.com or like a direct website cheaper. You can sell other channels cheaper. This is completely up to you. When we talk about now how to price it, I think sometimes it's a bit overrated because especially in the vacation rental, I mean, we talked about loyalty to certain channels. So maybe a loyal booking customer does not look into all of different websites. They just compare different properties. So maybe your competition is rather different properties than different platforms. Then, of course, you have on the other side, you have the platform comparers, like via meta platforms. There, I think in the hotel segment, it's quite easy because all these brand.com websites are known and surfaced. In the vacation rental industry, these little smaller websites are not always known or not really matched. I know that from my times at an OTA, that sometimes you see prices and it didn't make sense because it's the wrong website. So it's almost for a traveler. I'm not sure if Meta is the best tool. And then, yeah, I mean, you can still do it, but where I think is the real gain is once you really convince travelers about your property and your stay to really come up with returning discounts and benefits. That's, I think, a smart strategy. And I personally also think, like, if it's frequent travelers, great, then this is easy. If it's only travelers who maybe travel once a year with the family, they might forget things. So how do you stay on top of mind? So you can, based on seasonality, do a retargeting email if you collected the email addresses, or you maybe build a nice presence on Instagram and kind of make something entertaining. It needs to stay in the mind. People need to want to follow it. But these are some tactics I would do. And otherwise, yeah, I think, yeah, you need to see differentiated how parity should be seen or has impact or not impact.
Does it feel like your direct booking website should always be a bit cheaper than the OTAs?
I mean, you have theoretically less costs there. So you could, but on the other side, you risk as well. So I don't really want to give these answer because it probably differs. Because also a traveler who then comes at your website might be not so happy to see that they got a bad deal. So that could be also a negative experience on reviews. So yes and no. I'm sorry, James, but you don't get the real answer from me. It depends.
I think it's good to have the balance because you have a lot of people say, oh, you know, book direct, book direct, book direct. But, you know, this is a kind of a different way of looking at that. You know, it's worth, you know, having a diversified portfolio. And these are the questions you've got to ask yourself. There's a lot more to it than just saying, right, book direct and make it 10% cheaper than the OTAs.
Yeah, I would definitely give a discount to returning customers. And when I do retargeting for these ones, for sure.
That makes sense. If you were auditing a host who had listed on 3 OTAs and was getting almost no bookings, what would you look at first?
Yeah, we also talked about this similar a bit earlier. For me, it's really analytics and understanding the root cause of the issue. Is it that they are not shown enough and don't get enough clicks, or is it that they are not converting? And then from there, when I have this question answered, I know which direction to go deep. And then there's a whole rabbit hole of different elements you can analyze. But this is really, I always start with data.
That sounds like a very good place to start. And I mean, often, I mean, if you're looking at just things visually, usually it's the photos. If that can be the biggest problem straight away. Sorting your photos out might be the easiest fix.
And you might laugh because photos seem so simple, but sometimes I see some properties which only have 3 photos where I'm thinking like, really? Or sometimes you have an extreme of 99 photos and they all look the same or almost just from a different angle. I'm also thinking, really? So it's very simple, but yeah, even there are opportunities.
Yeah, often it can be the quickest fix. If you see a list, I saw a listing last year and all the photos were dark and everything looked like it was a different pattern and different colors. There was no theme or anything. And that was the quickest thing to put right. And often, the photos can make a big, big difference. Last question then, Christin, what's one significant change on OTA platforms in the last couple of years that most hosts haven't properly adapted to yet?
I don't think it's only hosts who didn't adapt to it yet. I think the industry is in general in change. Like platforms originally were like these search platforms where you typed in a date, a destination, and then you get your list. Now, with AI and all of these features, this is really changing. First of all, personalization comes in, and then it's all moving into free text search, and that's only the early stages of that change. So on the one side, OTAs need to think about how do they position themselves in that change. I mean, of course, there are a lot of partnerships with the open AIs of the world, but only a partnership doesn't make it yet, because how do you surface all your products? We talked about Genius earlier. How do you make sure Genius pops up? It's a closed channel product. Like, how does that work? So I think there is a lot of change, but also from a host side, what does it mean? What do I all need to display in my portfolio that I get maximum surfaced, and what are potentially also new products and features in the future popping up? So I don't think it's only hosts. I think the whole industry should be very much on the toes from all sides, and every day there are news and changes. And no one knows how the world will really look like in 5 years. So very agile times.
Yeah, you have to be very agile. A lot of change indeed. Who knows where we'll be with AI in 6 weeks? Never mind 5 years. Christin, that's been a real pleasure. You've shared so much knowledge. Thank you for being a guest on Built to Book.
Thank you very much for having me.
If you took one thing from today, I hope it's this. The OTAs are not working against you, but they are measuring everything. And the hosts who understand that and act on it are the ones quietly pulling ahead. There's a link to Smoobu's special offer in the description. If you're managing more than one property and you're still doing calendar management manually, please click that link. Episode 3 of Built to Book drops soon. We're going deep on direct booking strategy, how to build a booking engine that actually converts, and when it makes sense to go direct versus OTA. Subscribe to Host Planet so you don't miss it. Until next time, happy hosting.